my god, he's going to go around the inside. He's going to send it. He's taking the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix on the last lap. Matt Turner takes the win in a remarkable race. We have teammates coming together. How devastating!
And welcome in everybody to the iFormula League Formula 3 round number 7 here from the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, or more commonly known to everyone else as Monza. I am your commentator Alyssa Long, and I am joined here by Carlos Kitao.
Hey Alyssa, how are you doing today?
I'm doing absolutely amazing, mate, and hopefully you are doing well yourself. Obviously, we are here for the Formula 3 once again, back in the comms box. Nice of you to join me, and I reckon it's going to be a pretty hectic race here, obviously, with, I believe, 25 drivers in the grid, maybe even 26 drivers on the grid for this one, and yeah, I just think it's once again going to be absolutely mental to try and keep track of everything.
Yeah, we got like close to 30 drivers. Maybe someone will join midway through qualifying, which is just about to start or has just started. And I'm curious to see because the teammates of DriveX Esports, the top team, are both here present at the start of qualifying instead of at the end of qualifying. So yeah, it's good to see them. We have Freddie Clarkson as well, who I know has just finished the 24 hours of Nürburgring, or probably their team is still driving. I don't know if it's over already. I think his teammate Danny O'Keefe is missing, and then we have a couple of the guys. We have Darius Rokauskas, whose teammate is also missing, Martinez. We have Julie Redmond, Tieko Kriegsmann, James Moller. All those guys, the top guys that we are usually used to see going wheel to wheel. Hopefully it's another one like those.
Yeah, absolutely. But just while qualifying is starting up and we're letting a few people get on their outlaps and do their first sort of flyers, let's talk a little bit about the F3 standings as it is for you right now. Obviously, the driver standings are as follows, with Antonio Jimenez leading the top spot from Victor Barras with 96 points over Victor Barras' 85. Jake Potts in third with 73 points, followed off by Frederick Larson in fourth with 62 points. Joe Watts in fifth with 50 points. Julie Redman with 46 points in sixth, and then Brandon Walker with 41 points in seventh. Tico Kriegsmann in eighth with 36 points. Danny O'Keefe in ninth with 30, and then James Millett will round out your top 10 with 22 points. And it is very close up and down the field in the driver's standings, but one that doesn't seem to be as close is your team standings. DriveX Esports sort of running away with it, to be honest, and proving that they are probably the best duo that we have in F3 right now. Obviously that would be the team of Victor Barras and Antonio Jimenez, currently 1 and 2 in the championship, so absolutely yeah, it's going to be pretty obvious that they are up there at the top in the teams as well. Lumos Motorsports are second, with Orion Racing in third, CudaWorks in fourth, XRL Esports in fifth, Turning Point Racing in 6th, Origa in 7th, Locals Autosport in 8th, GTR Evolution in 9th, and then Turn 1 Racing in 10th. So, yeah, the Teams Championship a little bit more spread out than the driver standings, but even still pretty damn close up and down the field for a few of those spots, most notably the Lumos Motorsports team and Orion Racing as well. But as you mentioned, with Antonio Jimenez and Victor Barras both being here, I wonder whether or not there's going to be any sort of potential team orders later on in the race, if anybody else gets close, just to maybe give either Jimenez a bit further of a lead in the championship, or Victor Barras to catch up and do more in regards to the team standings as well.
Yeah, but I doubt there's gonna be anybody that gets even close to them. Like if they can get away with the usual uh turn one shenanigans here at Monza, which I'm assuming they'll lock out the front row and then just run away with it like they've done multiple times before. I think it's just gonna be a battle for the final step of the podium, and one of them, probably Barry's, who seems to have the better pace usually. I think is just gonna pull a gap on his teammates, and that's gonna be the end of it if no incidents happen. I don't think these guys usually have many incidents going on during the races. They're pretty consistent and safe drivers, and also quick at the same time. So yeah, I think yeah, that's my predictions. I think 1-2 for DriveX Esports, and then fight between the usual, Larson, the Lumos guys, probably Jake Potts, Moller getting in there as well, Brendan Walker and Julie Redman all fighting for the third step of the podium.
And
And
just as you
coming to the
say that, Jake Potts has a massive off there on the
yeah,
exit of the Lesmos on his qualifying lap. Was pushing maybe a little bit too hard, but he was in pole position. That is now taken by Victor Barris with a 144.02 compared to Jake Potts' 144.05. And
yeah.
it's looking to be very close between those top three. I mean, Antonio Jimenez, 144.16, so I imagine if he can find a slipstream as well, maybe we may see that time come down even further. Frederick Larson, a little bit further off with a 144.53, but still close enough, you'd imagine, to be able to find that sort of pace, especially with given maybe a little bit of a slipstream down the straights as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can see just how close qualifying usually is, but you have like 25 minutes of free tries basically, so you can crash all you want to find those extra tenths or hundreds. And Jake Potts usually qualifies pretty close to pole, so maybe he can even take the pole and mix up the front there. But that just shows you the crash there, how much these guys are pushing for pole. And you were talking about the slipstream yesterday in the F2. The slipstream was worth almost half a second around the lap. So I suspect these cars, since they're less downforce dependent, so less drag as well. That's not gonna be half a second, but still a few tenths probably, and that's probably what Larson is looking for here. To get close to that pole, but I don't think his teammate is here, so it's gonna be a tough one for him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just about trying to find the people to work with, right? Like, we're seeing people improving their times. For example, Jimenez right now up in sectors 1, 2, 3, and then sectors 5, but down a little bit through sector 4. And as we see, he does improve and slots himself just in front of Jake Potts. And again, very sort of similar lap times between all three of them. That's incredibly close. You imagine that's coming down to, what, maybe just a slightly tighter line on the exit of Parabolica, hitting the line slightly earlier, and it's that's sort of the error margin we're looking at, is just like any sort of slip that you get in the car, just like it's getting on the throttle maybe just a meter earlier, and that can push you up into pole position between those three. It is so close. But there's also a couple of other notable names as well, with Tico Kriegsman up there as well in 5th, James Malaire, Jake Potts' teammate, up there in 6th, and also Flubman as well. Someone that typically we're seeing battling around sort of that midfield, but up there in 7th right now, so doing a pretty good job for himself. Obviously there are a few more names here, and a couple newer names as well that some people may not have seen before. And those drivers, we're going to look to see what they can do, maybe make a name for themselves. And when I was talking about Tico Kriegsman, here we go, 143.938, first driver to break that 44-second barrier. And yeah, I mean, he puts in one a hell of a lap. I'm wondering,
but look at Jimenez.
Yeah, Jimenez is also up.
Purples.
Purple's in sectors 1 and 3. Is he going to find his time through the final sector? Let's jump on board with him as he does come round the Parabolica and goes across the line. Is he going to improve at all? It doesn't look like he did. I think he actually lost time there in the final couple of sectors. So
he had 3 bad
unfortunately-
sectors, and although he had 2 purple sectors, which indicates the best of the session, best sector of the session, he lost too much time on the other sections. So yeah, not enough, but you know, 1/10 between P1 and P4. So yeah, just all it takes is a few good sectors. Doesn't even need to be purple completely, and you can then maybe strike a lap that puts you on pole just barely. You know, you didn't think it would be possible to go even closer than Potts and Barry's were, which was what 200ths of a second.
Yeah.
And then you get Jimenez there in the middle of them, and then you get Briggsman a 10th up on that. So you know, very close, very interesting qualifying here.
Yeah, and I wonder if we'll see anyone do what Lewis Archer managed to do in the F2 championship of just find that I don't know what he found last qualifying session in the F2, but he managed to gap the field by a considerable margin, and honestly, I was incredibly confused as to what was going on and what he managed to achieve.
I think he just started pressing the throttle all the way. He wasn't doing that the other races.
Yeah, I mean,
No, it was.
he must have done something different, must have calibrated his pedals or something, because he managed to find something that no one else seemed to be able to match, and maybe that's what we'll see from a couple of drivers, obviously with now Victor Barris also jumping up there into the 143 barrier, and then Jimenez coming through with a 143.773. So Jimenez again proving why he's up there at the top of the championship, and wow, I mean, just when we thought it couldn't get much quicker, and we were thinking maybe, you know, 43.9s, 43.8s, maybe as sort of where the fastest is going to be, 43.7 from Jimenez. I mean...
Well, I think these guys push each other, so you see a faster time than you, like Kriegsmann was on pole, I don't want to say comfortably, because, I mean, the gap was very, very small, but, you know, you're on pole, there's nobody quicker than you. But now, Kriegsmann and the other guys are going to see, okay, there's somebody in front of me. So they're going to push a little bit more because they know the car can do it. Except, I mean, if your setup cannot do it, it just cannot. But the setups can't differ that much, really, here. So, you know, he knows the time is there, as he just does a purple sector there. And these guys will push each other one after the other, so I think pole is actually going to be like a 43.4, so
Really?
almost half a second up on this. I'm betting on that. There's still half the session to go, so I'm betting there's a couple surprises coming in.
Yeah, this is true. Obviously, the way that the circuit is going to be, we're going to see the track start to evolve and maybe get a little bit more grip in it, as we're still waiting to see a couple of these drivers actually set a representative time. Jackson Carr, Julie Redman, and Joseph Corley as well, I believe, are people we're still waiting to set a time, and just as I say that, Julie Redman finally sets her first time of a 144.763, so a second off of what
Jake
now
Potts.
Jake Potts has managed to do. So Jake Potts has now gone quicker and done a 143.764. So
They're just pushing each other. They just see someone faster than them and they just go for it.
yeah, and I mean, further down the field, we're still seeing people improving their lap times. Gibbons there improving on his lap time with a 145. I believe that was a 145.69. So Stuart Gibbons putting himself up to 17th, which is not a bad result for himself. Any sort of time improvement you can find in qualifying is absolutely massive, you know, because in qualifying, you're pushing flat out the entire time. You want to make sure you're giving 100% and you leave nothing out there on that lap, you know. If it costs the entire car to do so, then, well, that's just the rebuild that has to be done, you know. Thankfully, in sim racing, we don't have to worry about it, but yeah, definitely here, you're looking to see those times improve, as I believe we'll see Steve Bunting maybe improve on his lap time, with Eric Beddoes as well, who's his teammate, potentially improve. Julie Redmond's also improving, and Antonio Jimenez, again, purple through sector 1, slightly down in sector 2. I don't know how much down it is, but a purple in sector 3, so we might see another just another insane lap from Antonio Jimenez, and I actually want to get on board with him as we get into the Parabolica, and I want to see just what he's able to do through the Parabolica. We're going to see how much speed he can take here, and if he manages to go purple in the final sector as well, and you see the way the car is just looking like it's just on edge all the time, as he's just sliding it through the parabolica as well, small micro corrections and taking a little bit of a longer line than I would have imagined he should have taken, and I don't think he improved off of that either, no, a 143.86. Normally we're seeing people cut that inside line out of parabolica, so I'm wondering whether or not he's using this to potentially set up a new lap, and he didn't think he was improving enough to justify setting himself up for that shorter run to the line.
Yeah, it seems like he's yellow on, or yellow, orange, whatever, on the straight sectors. So maybe he's running a bit more downforce, and that's why he's purple on the twisty sectors. Maybe the setups can actually differ, as opposed to what I said. So let's see what he can do on this lap, if it's a hot lap that he was just preparing.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll see him come through the Sector 1 timing beam shortly here and see if he improves at all. I think he's not up by much, if at all. I believe he has just gone through Sectors 2 now. We should maybe start seeing him, yeah, and again down through both, so no improvements yet, and then again down in the third as well. Again, I don't think it's going to be by much, we're looking at these times right now, and he just pushes it too much through Ascari, gets on the inside curbs, and unfortunately has a little bit of an incident, but yeah, I mean, we're seeing all these drivers push the car so much to the limits now, where I don't think there's going to be that much left. I think what we may find here is we'll find a driver who can find the absolute limit of grip, and then everyone else is also trying to figure out what they did, what that was, to push and gain that sort of time. And I think we're at that point now where finding time is going to be, I imagine if anyone finds anything, it's going to be a massive find rather than anything small.
Yeah, and I think that can come from a very well set up slipstream, and that's where we might see a few tenths of improvement instead of just the hundreds or thousands we're seeing. So there's now a 2 tenths gap between P3 and P2. I think that can still get close just on pure pace, and then we might see a few surprises as drivers feel like they cannot push the car more, and they just need that slipstream to get the time they want. So that's where the surprises are probably coming in, and we might see a few tenths and drivers getting close to that 43.4, 43.5 that I was talking about.
Yeah, and we are seeing a few other people improve, as we just see James Mallet pop into the 144.398s, and still, we have yet to see anyone else except for these top 4 dip below that 1 minute 44 mark, and Jake Potts is on board with him right now as he goes purple, and you see the speed he carried through that chicane using all of the curb. I wouldn't be surprised if he is giving it absolutely everything on this one. Gonna see how much he uses of the Lesmos as well, and he's just gone purple again through Sector 2, provided he didn't pick up an off track here. The cars in front may be able to actually help him with a little bit of slipstream, and you see him keeping all the way to the left as well to try and go for the shortest run possible up to Ascari, making sure that you can find as much tenths as possible. Down slightly through Sector 3, which is near enough through the middle of the Lesmos, and then going on to Ascari. So we'll see whether or not he can get a slipstream here from this car in front. That is the number 57 of Julie Redmond, so potentially Redmond is going to help out here in a big way, and we're going to see if Jake Potts can indeed find that time purple again through the 4th sector. See if he can keep it in track limits. That's going to be close. We're going to see how close that is as he comes across the line. Is he going to jump into the 143.5? And it's so close. 143.63. And that is one hell of a lap from Jake Potts to put himself up into pole position now. Pretty convincingly, you'd have to say.
Yeah, that was the slipstream that I was talking about. First 3 sectors. And then he was just keeping outside of the slipstream down into Ascari because he didn't want to be on top of Julie Redmond coming into the chicane. That's what he was trying to set up, and then Julie Redmond didn't make it easy for him into the Parabolica. Otherwise, I think he could have gotten at least half a tenth there if he had set up the slipstream down the back straight, and if Julie Redmond did get out of the way into the Parabolica. But obviously, she was setting up her lap as well, so there's a lot of people here trying to get their time in. There's
Yeah.
only so much you do, and how it usually goes in Monza.
Yeah, there's only so much space on track, and when you've got 24 cars currently out there on track, all trying to set lap times, it is going to get very crowded and very busy very quickly. So it's just about trying to find that little pocket of air, I think, of just where you can have a draft, but it's not quite close enough to where you worry about that car impeding your lap either, especially for the top guys. Obviously they don't really have anyone else to follow except for themselves, so for the likes of Tico Kriegsmann, he can follow Victor Barris and Antonio Jimenez and Jake Potts incredibly closely and probably not have to worry about being affected because they're already pretty quick. But if he gets stuck behind the likes of maybe Frankie Francica, for example, then you may find that actually, while you may find the time in the draft, you're going to be suffering the corners just because you're that much quicker. As we see a couple of other people improving their lap times. I believe that's Vitaltis there improving on his lap time with a 1:45.633. So again, people are still improving this late in the session, and I'm sure we'll see that continue on with 3 minutes left to go. Jake Potts, I don't think is actually out on track right now. I think he is now back in the garage. I'm thinking maybe he's found as much time as he can, and he's going to use this last couple of minutes to just relax a little bit, maybe load the race setup and just sort out anything else that he needs to sort out. But Antonio Jimenez and Victor Barris are obviously going to try to put it on pole while he isn't out on track.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that it wasn't that I was totally wrong at the start of the session. I was saying DriveX Esports are gonna lock out the front row. Apparently, the Lumos guys have the speed to keep it in there. I'm just afraid they might not have the race space over the course of the 27 laps, because usually the DriveX Esports they have a lot of race space. They can keep it consistent without many incidents, and I think they're gonna still have the edge over at the end of the race. But now it's gonna make it interesting because Potts is ahead of them. They still need to get by. So provided he keeps it on track and doesn't have a spin by himself or something, we're gonna see a pretty good battle here.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of other people improving and setting their first valid lap time. Jackson Carr up into 13th as well. So for his first flying lap, that's actually pretty good. Antonio Jimenez also on a slight improvement through the first sector, but I think he's down a little bit too much for it to really matter, and without the slipstream he's going to find it probably very difficult to compete against Jake Potts now. I'm pretty sure those two guys of the DriveX team are going to need to maybe work together, and I believe we also saw an improvement from Julie Redmond as well. Not enough to change any positions, but it was still a nice improvement nonetheless. As we see a few other people just finishing their sort of final laps. And I think now is the time where everyone who is out on track, everyone who is just finishing their out laps will get one more lap in, but anyone who is in the pits, that's going to be it. That's going to be their session over, and that's where they're going to probably end up for the grid, unless those guys behind them can start setting some really good laps.
Yeah, I think once the guys in front set up their fastest lap times, couple tries is all it takes, because I think these guys probably spent the 2 weeks we had practicing, at least every other day. And then you have some guys down the field who probably, they're down the field probably because they have other leagues going on sometimes, or they want to race, multiple cars, play other racing games, or play anything else, or do anything else. So it's usually how it goes. The bottom guys don't get to practice as much, and so when they come into the session, they're finding huge chunks of time, because that's the natural way it goes. You find a lot of time at when you first start the practice. So that's why we're still seeing some improvements in the midfield. But I don't think it's gonna change much from now, unless Jimenez here, which is not midfield, but he's got two green sectors. Maybe he can at least improve his time, but I don't think it's gonna be 1.5 tenths to pots.
No, but he does indeed go green again, so maybe if he gets a really good Parabolica here, we could see him... Oh, I
that's
think
off
that's
track.
just off track, yeah. Just outside the white line there, so this one may not count. Trying to push it maybe a little bit too much, but we'll see what that time would have been, hopefully. If iRacing's going to tell us, but I don't think it will, because it was invalid, so unfortunately that will be it. For Antonio Jimenez, and I think that is where the grid will line up. I don't think anyone else is improving on their lap times. Maybe Frederick Larsen can get in one last push, but I think no, he is retiring back to the pit lane. So yeah, I think that'll be it, and I'll tell you what, it's looking pretty close between quite a few of these guys, especially in the midfield as well, you know, down from 6th all the way down to like 13th, you know, they're separated by not that much. You're looking at maybe 5 tenths, which, you know, as you say, if in the midfield you don't get much time to practice, maybe a little bit more than the guys further down, but maybe not enough that you would like, you can then potentially find that time just during the course of the race.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I want to say that qualifying is over already. It felt like 30 seconds went by and not 25 minutes, man. It's so entertaining watching these guys just set up laps. I mean, I don't even know what to say. It just felt like a flash, really. And now I just want to see how the race goes. I want to see everyone get by turn 1 safely, hopefully, and we don't have 5 laps of safety car right at the start. And then I'm once again very, very interesting in this fight going on, because you have Jake Potts there, which you know, Jake Potts has probably less race pace, but he's in front. So you know, the natural way things are gonna go is that you're gonna have a switch, and I'm curious to see how that switch happens.
Yeah, one thing I'm curious about as well is as we talk about the race and how that's going to go, obviously one part of the race is going to be your pit strategy and how you want to do that, because obviously with it being a mandatory pit stop in this session, then you're going to end up with probably you're going to end up with a situation where you have time found going into the pit lane. Obviously, it is probably one of the easier pit lanes, I think, regarding layout and how you get into it. Yeah. But I think it's also deceptive in the way of you're coming out of Parabolica pretty quickly, and you've got to slow down in not that much space at all, really, by the time you exit the corner as well. So if anyone's following you, or potentially, you know, if there's any miscommunication on someone that you're racing with and you're going into the pits and you need to pit on that lap because you're going to run out of fuel, then yeah, we may end up seeing something happen there as well. And keep in mind that obviously anytime you're not out on track, you're not going at full speed, you end up with, you know, you'll be in a place where you're not finding time, you're losing it. So you want to try and minimize that as much as possible and really pushing it in to the pit lane and trying to get on that pit speed as late as you possibly can within the rules, I think is where we may find actually some people find time and maybe pick up a few positions even. You know, some of these...
Sometimes when I mean, that's not something that's very usual to practice, is the pit entry. You may do it a couple times, but you're never trying to push it to the limit as you are through all the corners, which is a normal thing to do. I'm guessing most of these guys practiced a few times entering the pit lane just to have a, you know, around the ballpark of where to brake at least. But if there's two cars glued out of Parabolica, I think the car in front, if they want to stop, they just need to go all the way to the right, maybe even come on the radio and say, okay, I'm pitting this lap, which these guys tend to do, really, at least in F2. You know, if that happens, they have the awareness, let's say, to know, okay, maybe the guy will not guess that I'm gonna pit, so I'm just gonna come on the radio and say I'm pitting this lap, or you have like the keyboard shortcuts, which I don't really use, to be honest. I prefer the radio. But sometimes they use it to say just pitting in this lap, and that might be useful for these guys. But that reminds me, these cars are similar to the Formula Renault 2.0, and I know you can bump draft on this track in those cars. So wonder if we'll see some bump draft shenanigans here down the main straight, because I've seen that happen. Obviously, probably one of the most famous is Norris and Verstappen at Spa, where we'll actually race the next or 2 weeks from now. Just a reminder. Obviously down the Camel Straight, which is probably even a longer straight than the main straight here at Monza. We might see something like that. I actually tried to do it yesterday with Cesar Cabral, but we didn't talk about it, so I thought maybe not, and not risk spinning the guy, because it's something that's very dangerous to do. Like, you need to talk to the guy in front. Okay, I'm touching the back, so there's contact. Don't move your wheel, just go straight, and then I'll lift at the end of the straight. That's usually how it goes. I actually remember in GP3, which is probably similar to the Renault 3.5 GP3 in real life. A driver from Portugal, Felix da Costa, actually did that to Aro Vinho, and it's actually crazy to see, man. Like, they just push each other so much down the straight with such a big bump draft. Is actually very powerful. So I wonder if these guys actually, if they made some plans for that, if at least the teammates between themselves, if they know they can do that, and if they planned for that come the opportunity.
I think you're putting a lot of faith in the iRacing netcode when you go for a bump draft. I think
it's possible. It's possible. I'm telling you.
Yeah, we see it a lot. Obviously, with the oval guys, they do it all the time, because that's sort of what the cars are built for, and that's sort of how you go fast on ovals. Is you've got to work with people that you're racing with, which is something that typically you say to a lot of the road guys, and they're like, "Yeah, but I don't want to do that. I just want to get in front of them and win, right?"
Yeah.
So
no, but sometimes the bump draft is very it's very powerful, and obviously ovals, that's a big part of the racing. It's a bump draft. Although I might be just bullshitting because I don't race ovals, so I don't know. But it's possible in open wheelers as well, and I've done it multiple times. So it's very powerful. So I'm hoping we can see that. So the race is about to start, so I'll hand it over to you as usual, and hopefully we'll have a good one.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's gonna be one of those races where we're gonna see this man Jake Potts here on pole position, and we're looking to see whether or not he can get a clean getaway with that Lumos Motorsport car. And if he can, we want to try and run away from Antonio Jimenez and Victor Barris, and then also the likes of Tico Kriegsmann behind him. So yeah, it's going to be one of those where I think we're going to see potentially, and you see the amount of cars on the grid, like we're going to see maybe a few people try and make some opportunistic moves into turn one, and maybe even go 3 wide down the straight, 4 wide down the straight. We see it a lot in GT racing as well on a rolling start, but here we are for the start, and a couple of people didn't ready up, so Flodman and Herbert are going to start in the pit lane, but that's no matter. We got 5 red lights and we are green here in Monza, and a couple of people not getting off the start, so already a couple of people losing some positions and not really able to find anywhere to go, as we see a massive swarm of cars here going into turn number 1. It looked like Jake Potts had an amazing start, followed off behind by Victor Barris, Antonio Jimenez, Tico Kriegsmann behind him, and then we've got Stan Franz as well, Brandon Walker, and a couple of other cars in that midfield battle, all trying to get through cleanly. And it looked as though it's actually a pretty clean start, considering we had a couple of people further down the grid who just didn't get off the line for whatever reason. And keep in mind that we have a couple people that were starting from the pit lane, so we're going to potentially look at those guys to maybe start to make their way back up the field, as we've got the Cuda people battling with, I believe this is Stan France, so Brandon Walker and Julie Redmond both trying to push each other along to see if they can find any places, and there seems to be chops and changes all up and down the field right now, but everyone's starting to line up in single file, starting to get to where they want to be moving forward, and I believe this is now Julie Redmond maybe defending from Brandon Walker, or at least trying to break the slipstream and maybe cause a Cuda blockade for the rest of them going into the Ascari chicane for the first time. Julie Redmond followed off by Brandon Walker, followed by Frederick Larson, who didn't really get a good start, down 3 positions off the start. And if you look further up in front, we've got Victor Barris and Jake Potts, and then Antonio Jimenez trying to go outside, maybe cause a Drive X sandwich here with Jake Potts in the middle. I don't think there was anything made, but Jake Potts is having to hang the long way around the outside of the Parabolica, and absolutely amazing drive from him. Gets an amazing run out of the corner on the first lap. And I'll tell you what, that first lap is absolutely crazy, and it's going to start all over again, and there seems to be very close contact there. It almost looked as though the Drive X guys were going for a bump draft, and then Jake Potts defending so much that he actually ended up causing a bit more of an issue, and you see those brake discs glowing as there's so much energy being transferred to the brakes off of the start, and wow, that is absolutely insanely close between these drivers, and it was almost looking like there was going to be contact between all of them, but what that's meant is now Antonio Jimenez, I'm not sure if he had any incident coming out of the corner, but James Miller's now going to be trying to attack him into the next chicane and actually gets the move done. So we've got Lumos followed off by Drive X, followed off by Lumos again, followed off by the other Drive X car, and then we've got both Turning Point racing cars as well behind them. So this absolutely is going mental here on the second laps. Potts has
got an issue.
Yeah, Potts slow on the through the middle of the Lesmos, and now being attacked by the other Cuda drivers as well. Julie Redmond's now passed. Brandon Walker's now getting passed as well into Ascari, so I'm not sure if there was indeed, as you mentioned, a slowdown possibly, but this is all kicking off, and it's so hard to keep track of what's going on, as we've got Antonio Jimenez now being challenged by Tico Kriegsman as well, and Kriegsman obviously trying to use that slipstream as much as he can, maybe get his teammate up there to try and battle, and then Julie Redmond behind them doing an amazing job off the start, gaining 2 positions. A couple of other drivers gaining quite a few off the start as well. Joachim Flubman obviously losing a few after starting in the pit lane, so there seems to be absolute carnage breaking out absolutely everywhere on this track right now.
Yeah, I think just watching back, Potts was a bit under pressure from Barris there, and it just got turn 4, the first left-hander of the second chicane. So he's now under attack from Brandon Walker, and he's probably going to get past here. 3 wide into turn 1. Let's see how they go.
Frederick Larson as well made the move on, I believe that was Brandon Walker, and then indeed makes the move on Jake Potts as well. So a double pass from Frederick Larson. Absolutely amazing job for him just to go through the middle and then just commit to absolutely gunning it on Jake Potts as well. And I believe Brandon Walker's now starting to drop back on the field as well. Patrick Olsen's now overtaken him. John Rowland has also overtaken him. So, but then Brandon Walker's also come back, as I believe that is one car there. I'm not sure which one that is. I think that is John Rowland has spun on the exit of what was that? I think that was the Curva Grande, which is an interesting place to lose it. So I imagine, looking at now there's damage on Brandon Walker's car, I wonder whether or not there's any contact made there between the two of them, as Jackson Carr is also maybe trying to make a move up the inside of the Lesmos. Very late move, but he manages to make it work. I wonder if he's going to sacrifice too much speed and now not be able to make any sort of defensive move into Ascari, as he's going to be attacked by both Sean Roberts and Brandon Walker. We'll keep on board with Sean Roberts as he tries to make the move up the inside into the Ascari chicane. Is Brandon Walker, is Jackson Carr going to give him the space, and they're side by side all over the curbs through Ascari, and we're going to see both drivers giving massive amounts of respect to each other, but sabotaging themselves a little bit, as Frankie is now also getting in the mix after having overtaken Brandon Walker, and now potentially making a move here, double overtake on Sean Roberts up the inside of the Parabolica, and lets off just enough to let Sean go back in through. So That was some very close driving between all four of those drivers, as Jackson Carr is already into the pits, so I wonder whether or not he's pitting because of damage, potentially, as we see Jake Potts now get past Frederick Larson again, obviously with the aid of that slipstream into turn number 1, and it is so hard to keep track of what is going on right now. There is action everywhere.
Like 10 different races. Yeah, this looks like 10 different races going on, man. It's very hard to keep track. I think a few laps ago, or previous lap, Brendan Walker just spun it on himself at the Curva Grande, and then John Rowland probably got distracted by it and also spun. That's why it looked like a very big incident, but I think no contact between cars, just between cars and the wall there. And obviously Walker's got massive amounts of damage. I don't know if he stopped already. He must have. I can't even see him there, actually. But yeah, Jackson Carr, very early pit stop. I don't know if that was damage. He's still in the pits, it seems like.
Yeah, 40
I don't know what these
pit
guys...
lane timer, so I'd imagine there would be damage involved somewhere with that, and he's maybe not using a fast repair, even though he is entitled to do so. He did get it back into the pit lane, so we'll have to wait
maybe
and see.
Maybe he's bad on the pit lane.
Potentially,
maybe also
it could be a stop and it could be a stop and go, but he is back out now after a 48-second hold there, so that's an absolutely insane amount of time to hold. And I think Antonio Jimenez has now actually managed to get past James Miller as well, or there may have been some sort of battle going on that we just missed off camera, but what that's going to mean is James Miller now has the slipstream going down the long start-finish straight here into turn number 1, with Antonio Jimenez going very defensive, and James Miller sort of flying the flag for the Lumos cars, and not really being the fastest in qualifying, but definitely showing he's got this race pace compared to these Drive X guys. Obviously both of them now already out there 1 and 2, but unfortunately due to the incident of Jake Potts having, I believe it was the slowdown, as we now have a yellow flag out, which is a safety car, I believe. So we'll see this race get neutralized, and everyone will bunch up, and I'm not sure what the crash was, but it looks as though Stan Franz, Jake Potts and Frederick Larson have all crashed. So I wonder whether or not there was a massive incident here, and we'll try and get on board with Stan Franz and see what happened. As Stan Franz goes down the start-finish straight, we'll see what happens into the chicane. He brakes quite early, you'd imagine, and just spins the car around, and unfortunately nowhere to go on the entry to the chicane, and after that, you know, you kind of have to call it. You got to call the safety car, because that is quite a dangerous place to having been stopped. We'll take a look at the point of view from Frederick Larson as well, going into the corner. Watch ahead, we'll see one of the cars, just lock the brakes, and then there's just nowhere to go, and just absolute carnage there in the middle of the first chicane, so having to ease off a little bit. But already we're 5 laps down of a, I believe, 27 lap race. And it is all kicking off. We've got safety cars now. We've got absolute chaos happening to arguably some of the better drivers here, with Frederick Larson and Jake Potts having incidents. So potentially they may be pitting for damage when they're able to. Obviously pit lane will remain closed for a little bit. We've just got a sort of a neutral start again, and what that'll mean is Victor Barris, Antonio Jimenez and James Miller are all going to get very, very close indeed on the restart, and we may end up seeing it kick off all over again.
As if it wasn't enough for the first 5 laps. But very unfortunate there for Larson and Potts. It's not their fault, just somebody made a mistake in front of them, and they couldn't avoid it. I think Larson didn't get much damage, but any damage is gonna affect your lap time. And obviously Larson here has got the pace for a podium, and he's not gonna settle for less than that. So I'm sure he's furious in that car, just waiting for the pit lane to open. And obviously, this is oval rules for the safety car, and that usually means pit lane closed on the first few laps of the safety car. So these guys cannot stop right now, and only I don't know how long this car will be. It's usually like probably 3 or 4 laps.
2 or 3 laps for the first... normally, yeah.
Okay, so for the first 2 laps, it's gonna be closed probably, or for the first lap at least. So that's why these guys haven't pit just yet. So there's a few cars out there with damage. And now coming actually to the front, DriveX Esports won too, as I mentioned. So consistency just wins races, even if they didn't have the pace. Potts there cutting the corner, getting a slowdown. That's obviously driver error, even though it wasn't a spin, lost him a huge amount of time. So it's now down to Malaire to, I don't want to say catch up to Jimenez and Barris, but to maybe hold up Kriegsmann and Redman so that Potts can maybe gain up a few positions. I think that's all Lumos Esports can do right now. And maybe I'm just biased and I have too much faith in DriveX Esports, but that's what it feels like to me. I think they're just gonna run away with it and work with each other to push each other forward and create a gap.
But taking a look here at Jake Potts' car, and you can see that damage.
Ooh.
That is a front wing completely gone after the collision. So yes, he is currently in 6th, but he is probably going to have to pit for repairs. And Frederick Larson also, I imagine, with slight damage as well, having collected who I believe it was Stan
Potts.
Franz, yeah, or Potts even. So. Yeah, it's going to be, I imagine those two drivers will come in for repairs as soon as they can. And
I don't think Larson has much damage, really. I'm looking at the car very closely, and it seems fine. So maybe he got away with it, luckily.
potentially, but we'll have to wait and see what happens when the pit lane opens. And I did get a bit of a confirmation as well of the reason that Jackson Carr went into the pit lane was because of a penalty for himself. So yeah, there wasn't any actual time lost there, or like a sort of pitting for damage. It was just purely due to a penalty. As we see now, Jake Potts having to come in, Brandon Walker also coming in for his first pit stop as well, and then Jabino as well further down the order coming in, Jackson Carr coming in as well, and then I believe that is Halmar also coming in further down the field. So we're going to get a bit of a reshake of the order, and some of the quicker guys are going to now be a bit further down the order than they would otherwise like to be, I'd imagine. And what it's going to mean is obviously on the restart they need to be very careful. They need to make sure that they are clean and just backing off maybe a little bit into turn one and just making it easy to you know, just survive it's gonna be more of like a lap 1 turn 1 scenario more than like a lap 7 turn 1 scenario, right?
Yeah.
So
it's all the same. I mean, the race is neutralized, everybody's bunched up, and you know, very eager to go and maybe get a few positions on the restart, catch somebody napping, which can happen because here in our racing you can actually go before the light turns green. So as soon as the car, you know, you can just pull back as soon as the lights on the safety car go out, which I think they have already. So
Yep.
Safety car in this lap. Barris can just pull back on the back straight, I imagine, into Parabolica, and then it's just gonna go out of Parabolica, and he doesn't need to wait for any green lights or anything. He can just pick the right moment for him. And if you can actually time it right down the field, you can gain a few positions on people waiting for that green light because they cannot see what's going on in front of them. So that's probably a situation where a race engineer can actually be very helpful. If someone is watching the leaders and they, let's say, you know, Danny Rakauskas, P16, he obviously cannot see Victor Barris. But if he had a race engineer watching Barris, he could just tell him, okay, go, it just went. And then Rakauskas would catch so many people sleeping in front of them, he could get a few positions by the time they get to turn 1.
Yeah, absolutely. But another thing to note as well is the fact that we've got the DriveX guys 1 and 2. Maybe Victor Barris is going to tell Jimenez when he's going, so then that way Jimenez can defend from Malaire, and those two can get a really good start. Obviously, we're going to see Victor Barris ease off a little bit, I imagine, just before the Parabolica to let that safety car in, because while you can go before the lights turn green, you still need to wait for the safety car to be in the pit lane, before you overtake it. So if you overtake the safety car before it comes into the pit lane because you went too early, then you will incur a penalty. So you need to make sure that you're holding back a little bit just when the safety car does go. But
look at that shot. Look at that shot.
there's
Down the
so many cars.
Oh.
There's so many cars, single file. We've got 26 cars here on the grid. And I'm going to say my stream's struggling to keep up. Well, I'm struggling to keep up. Yeah, my stream's struggling, my brain's struggling. I'm so glad that we've got the timing stuff provided to us as well, because otherwise it'd be an absolute nightmare to try and keep track. So let's see when Victor Barras goes. He can go at any point from now. So let's see if those two time it together. And I believe he is off, and there is a huge crash in the background.
Oh,
absolutely amazing. I don't know what's happened. That may be another safety car straight off the back of a safety car, but there seems to be quite a few people who are off in the background in Parabolica with wheel damage and front suspension damage, and absolutely just out of the race now, I'd imagine. I believe that was Walker, Gibano, Franz, and then maybe Vitautas as well, all out of the race with, and then, immediately, as I said, another safety car. So safety cars breed safety cars, as the saying goes, and I'm not sure what happened there, but
I think Joseph Colley just, he went and then he braked or slowed down, and the people behind him, which were Vitautas and Stan France, just weren't expecting it, and they caused something like we saw at Mugello in 2020 in F1. They just, big pile up, speed difference, and that's the game over, I think, for a few of these drivers.
Yeah, so let's see. This is more on the safety car lap. I was just seeing whether or not there was anything involved with Stan Franz. I think that was just him being a little bit slow there. So off the green flag. Let's see what happens here from Gibano's point of view. So it's gone green now. He gets on the throttle through Parabolica, and already you see there's crashes. And then, I'm not sure who that was who basically stopped on the exit of Parabolica, but that has caused some massive issues for everyone else. I wonder whether or not Jackson Carr is here, and no, it looks like there was a Lumos guy there, who, I'd imagine that would be Jake Potts. Off the start, just didn't get going as quickly as he probably should have, and as such, we had just a massive pile-up behind. So I want to see potentially if we can get that from... I want to see if maybe we can get that point of view from Jake Potts.
I think Potts just slowed down for the incident in front, and then he got Brandon Walker behind him. Potts actually didn't get collected, just Walker slowed down for Potts and got collected by Emanuele.
An incident here then between Vitautas. Oh, that is unfortunate. I think that was Vitautas and then another...
Oh.
I'm not sure which car that is. We may have to look back at that from...
That's Emanuele. The red one is Emanuele.
Different angle, not that one.
Let's
see if we can find out who that was behind him. And I'm not sure which Turning Point racing car that was, but
that's France.
Yeah, and what that's meant is there has been some massive damage further down the field. So Stan Franz, unfortunately, I think caught off guard maybe by the sudden slow of Vitautas, because he's going green now. He thinks it's green, and then just unfortunate crash involved, and that'll be him out of the race. And then big crash there from maybe Emmanuel Gibano was that one possibly.
I think so.
And
I think Emmanuel just went crash. And everybody was slowing down in front of him.
See if we can get another review of this incident. So the crash has already happened, so he thinks that there's people. He tries to avoid it. And instead of slowing down for the incident, he decides to try and gun it, and that's him in the wall. And unfortunately, I'd imagine...
I mean, at that time, you have so much speed already because everybody's going. But then if a few guys are slowed down on the exit of the corner, sometimes you don't even see them, and for sure you are not expecting them because it's green flag, so you're not expecting to brake at the exit of the corner. So he just didn't have time to react because he was not expecting someone to be that slow out of the corner.
Yeah, and I still think that some people are under the assumption that if you overtake before the line, you'll actually get a penalty. But when the green flag drops, when the green flag drops, you can go. So I think Jake Potts didn't want to overtake the cars ahead of him because of not wanting a penalty for obvious reasons, and then that's why he was a little bit slow. Obviously the cars in front had another incident ahead, so maybe he slowed for that, but I just think he maybe didn't want to overtake to risk not having a penalty, and instead there was just massive chaos behind. I mean, it's what we see is safety cars breeding safety cars, and unfortunately we have got back-to-back safety cars, so it's almost going to be 6 laps here of safety cars with a 27-lap race, so only 21 laps of actual racing, provided it goes green all the way from here on out, and hopefully this restart is a little bit better.
But look at who's P2 from P3.
Yeah, James
Miller.
I think he
got a position into turn 1.
He may have potentially jumped... Was Jimenez leading? On the
No. It was Barris, Jimenez, and Moller, and then Moller just passed Jimenez into turn 1.
So before the...
before the second safety car.
Before the safety car was called, he managed to get the pass, which obviously now means that he is...
gonna get another pass for the lead.
Potentially. But now we see almost everyone coming into the pit lane. I don't know whether or not this is everyone coming in because they need to, or whether or not everyone's coming in because if it's going to continuously be safety cars, then we might as well get our pit stops done now, right?
Yeah. Larson didn't stop. He didn't get any damage from that first crash, so he might be, if there's another safety car, he might be on the worst end of the stick there, because he's gonna have to stop, and a lot of people are stopping right now, so they're gonna get in front of them. Even though the safety car is gonna come in this lap, the guys pitting now, as you can see them at the back there, they can easily catch up to the pack. So let's say a driver like Larson pits now, or there's no safety cars and Larson still has to stop, is gonna be out of the points, I think, with so many people stopping right now.
Yeah, and to keep in mind, obviously the top 7 haven't pit yet, so everyone else has pit. So Gibbons, in theory, is
leading the race.
Possibly leading the race. I mean, if we're taking into account pit stop times, depending on when Barris, Miller, Jimenez, Kriegsmann, Larson, Olsen, and Roberts pit, we may see Gibbons take the lead of this race, which would be absolutely mental. He's already gained 9 positions throughout the course of this race.
Yeah, I want to see that happen because, it's a big shake-up of the field. Usually, Gibbons is a midfield driver.
Yeah.
So, he's got less space than the top guys. Obviously, I mean, the top guys are top guys because they have more pace.
Yeah.
So if the field got essentially reversed like that, we would have to see these top guys working for a few positions, which, I mean, Monza is easy to overtake, but still it's gonna make for some pretty interesting racing. I think the strategy here is gonna be, Barris, Moller, and Jimenez, and obviously the guys at the front are gonna try to pull a gap before they stop, but still it's like a 30-second pit delta, so they need to put a 30-second gap on Gibbons in order to be in the lead of the race. So
yeah, absolutely. I think it's more likely that you would lose probably about 20 seconds in the pit lane on like actual overall time. So from where you pit, I know in the F2s that was sort of around that sort of time, because while you're in the pit lane for 35 seconds, obviously you're traveling through the pit lane at some speed, so you don't lose exactly 35 seconds. You lose whatever your pit stop time is, plus maybe whatever the difference is between just doing a drive through the pit lane. and then whatever your actual stop time is. So yeah, we typically look at about 20 seconds, but here we go for the second restart here with Victor Barris leading the way, followed by James Miller, Antonio Jimenez behind James, followed by Tico Kriegsmann, followed by Frederick Larsen, and let's see whether or not we can get a clean start this time and everyone takes it nice and easy off the start and into Parabolica. And I believe Victor Barris has gone now as late as he possibly could, and we'll see whether or not the field has indeed all got away cleanly. It looks like everyone was out of Parabolica this time, so hopefully there's going to be no issues here going into turn number 1, and they're going 3 wide into the first chicane. Antonio Jimenez, Tico Kriegsmann, and Frederick Larsen all battling it out into the first chicane, and Antonio Jimenez managing to make the most of that one and get out to a pretty clean start, with Victor Barris and James Miller going at basically identical times. Frederick Larsen now trying to look for the inside, and has there been another...
Out of turn 2, out of the chicane, there's a big pile up.
We haven't got any yellow flags for now, so hopefully it's not too bad and it's not impacting the race too much, but yeah, that's going to be unfortunate for the people collected in that one. Hopefully everyone got through relatively okay, except for obviously the people involved in the crash. But yeah, I mean, going back to the battles that we've got so far, Jake Potts has managed to get himself back up to 9th off of the restart. So I think that helped by a couple of the people pitting, and indeed he's now going to get past Stuart Gibbons here for 8th place potentially before the Ascari chicane. And if he can manage to do that, he can start running away from the car behind of Jackson Carr, and indeed he has done so. So Jake Potts and Jackson Carr now trying to fight their way up to the back of Sean Roberts, and Jake Potts now becomes the leading car who has actually had a pit stop. So Jake Potts is now going to look to potentially win this race from here. Obviously doesn't need to worry about stopping again, so he can go all the way to the end, we imagine. And if he can do so, unless Victor Barris, James Miller, and Antonio Jimenez can really put their foot down, we're probably going to see Jake Potts take home the win if all goes according to plan. But we'll have to keep an eye on the gaps and how things go there, as we will jump on board. Actually, no, we'll stay on board with Jackson Carr, because we'll see if he gets close enough to maybe make a move. It doesn't look like anything happened there yet, so let's see whether or not Joachim Flubman can also make a move here in that banana car, going past Darius in the number 23 up the inside of the chicane, and there's contact made on the exit of the chicane. We may see another yellow flag potentially, but I think Darius got out of the way just enough to avoid another yellow flag. And yeah, on the exit of the chicanes, people are trying to make obviously as much time as they can, and an unfortunate contact there between the two of them. And I believe we have seen already quite a few DNFs here, and there is, yeah, indeed another yellow flag because of that incident, I'd imagine. So we got a few laps of green flag running, and then there was an incident further down the grid on the end of 5 laps of the chicane. Car. So yeah, we've got another safety car, and if it continues like this, I think the safety car will actually lead more laps in the race than the leader.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, we've had probably what, half the race now under yellow. You know, obviously with these big crashes happening, half the grid is gonna DNF, so eventually we're gonna get racing again with not many incidents going on. The crash on the previous lap was also out of turn 2, but everybody seemed to get away out of the way quickly, even though it was a big crash. And yeah, obviously a few cars got damaged.
Get on board with some of the people involved. So on the exit of the corner, it looks like the Blue Frog cars both colliding together from some contact further behind, and then collecting some other drivers all in the meantime. And then it almost looked as though Frankie just drove straight into the car in front of them because of steering damage. Maybe not expecting the car to be moving so far to the left, but
yeah, look at that steering. I mean, it's just going straight. It needs to be steering right. That's obviously not ideal.
Indeed, and especially if you don't have much experience on dealing with a car with that sort of damage, it means that you may potentially not be used to having to turn your wheel like that, and it's a very difficult thing to do, to be able to get it back to the pit lane while your car's steering is damaged that much. And yeah, unfortunately, that incident did not bring out the yellow flag. I believe the one that did bring out the yellow flag would be the one involving Darius and Flodman, but we'll take a look on board with Darius and see if anything else happened further down the grid. Let's take a look at this from TV cam. We'll see whether or not. So there was contact made between Darius and Flodman, and then a little bit of contact made, a couple of other drivers all stopping. I wonder if there was any other incidents further down the grid, potentially, as to why that's happened. So we'll jump on board with Alberg as well. See what happened here further down, as it looks as though, yeah, so Halberg just comes to a stop on the exit. It looks like it was relatively clean, actually, further back.
Yeah, it feels like the cleaner incident was the one that brought out the safety car for some reason. You know, obviously race direction, they're watching from another perspective, so you know that's their decision. Yeah, I mean, you know, Larson into P4 out of you know, the previous safety car. Muller got a position. Now Larson got 2 positions, I think, or 3 even, on the restart. So
yeah, so I just want to check this. I believe this is Vitaltas having to take the escape road after missing his braking point for the first corner. It just counted as a crash, apparently. But I just want to see whether or not there was any other crashes as well, because under safety car, obviously, we haven't been really keeping track of what's been going on, and I believe Stan Franz may have had an incident, and there it is.
yeah.
I'm not sure what happened there, but his car all of a sudden died.
No, I think that's just an update issue. Yeah, you see, it goes back to normal. That's probably an iRacing, you know,
Disconnect, possibly.
Yeah, some, I don't know, some issues with iRacing there.
And then, yeah, he starts get going again, and then same thing happens. So yeah, I believe
the damage is there. It's just not showing properly. So you know, his car is completely ruined. I don't think he's gonna make it out again. It's just what we're seeing sometimes on iRacing. It works like that. You just get a different result, or sometimes you'll see the car just magically fix itself. That's what we're seeing right now. So as you see, Barry's here coming into a stop. Is he? No,
he was faking it. He was faking it.
But I think Muller went in.
Yeah, potentially Muller went in off of Victor Barris, potentially. So maybe Muller is using this time to just get a quick pit stop in and maybe not lose too much positions. Obviously, it would make sense. But yeah, I mean, this is now the 3rd safety car here. Was really clean up until the first one, and then back-to-back-to-back safety cars near enough. So, yeah, it's been an interesting race, but what that means is Jake Potts is now up into 4th, and the Omni cars ahead of him haven't pit. So
yeah, so it seems to have worked pretty well with for Jake Potts there, even though, you know, the very unfortunate huge slowdown in the first few laps, and then almost getting collected on the incident at the restart there. It seems to, you know, be threading the needle through all this chaos, and is now up into the net lead of the race as soon as the others pit.
Yeah, and again, depending on how long this takes, and depending on when Victor Barris and Antonio Jimenez come in for the pits, we may end up seeing them actually try to extend that gap to Jake Potts enough to where they can get a free pit stop, but I'd imagine it's going to be very, very, very difficult to do so now, especially this, you know, this late into the race. I mean, we're not halfway through yet, I don't think. Oh, just over the halfway point now. So, I mean, it's all a possibility, right, of where they could try and build up enough of a gap, but they basically need to be doing quali laps for the rest of this race, I think.
Yeah, and I like the way Barris baited Muller into a pit stop, because now Barris cannot slow them down. Muller cannot slow them down, the DriveX Esports, for Jake Potts. So now they're just, you know, clean racing with Patrick Olsen behind them and in front of Potts critically. So Olsen is probably a threat to Potts because he's gonna want to hold that position as long as possible. But he's not a threat to Jimenez and Barris because he's gonna be under attack from Potts. So they're gonna lose time battling, and the two top guys are just gonna run away with it. So great play by Barris there to bait James Miller into a pit stop there under the safety car.
And one person I do want to quickly talk about is, look who's currently in P9. Steve Bunting started in quali near enough at the back of the field. He has gained 15 positions through the course of this race.
Wow.
Which is an absolutely incredible job. Patrick Olsen also gaining 9 positions. Yes, he has yet to stop, so a lot of those I imagine he's gained from just not stopping.
Yeah.
But even still, you know, Steve Bunting has stopped. So those 15 positions are the 15 positions he's gained. You know, everyone else behind him and the majority of people ahead of him have stopped. So Steve Bunting as well is just doing an amazing job on just keeping it clean. And that seems to be the story of this race. Keep it clean and you can end up near enough fighting for the lead after having slowdowns and other incidents, as Jake Potts is proving.
Yeah.
But here we go again for the restart. Victor Barris is going to lead us away, and let's see whether or not he leaves it late again, the same as he did last time. And if he does, then I believe that is indeed what we are seeing. He has indeed just gone now, with Antonio Jimenez following behind with Patrick Olsen and then Jake Potts, and then a huge swarm of cars behind them, all battling for track position. We'll take a look at Jake Potts and see whether or not he can make a move on Patrick Olsen into turn number 1, but he doesn't look like he's going to make a move yet. Julie Redmond tries to go up the inside of, I believe that's Brandon Walker. No, Stuart Gibbons even. So he's now made that move. And Julie Redmond is now up, going to be with her teammate eventually, I'd imagine, with Brandon Walker, and those two are going to start working together to maybe make their moves up to the likes of Jackson Carr and Jake Potts. And I believe further down the field, again, we've had another couple of incidents, so not everyone getting clean, and Nicholas Marshall also getting up the inside there for the CUDA team of Frederick Larson. So there's another huge crash on the exit, and oh no, Nicholas Marshall also collects the number 97 of Jackson Carr, and again another huge crash on the exit of the chicane and into the Lesmos. So look at how many drivers are now in the pit lane. Olsen, Carr, Marshall, Francesca, Corley, Gibano, and Franz all out of this race near enough, and Vitautas also dropping a couple of positions as well, but I think he's gained them back now. I think that's just Vitautas and Darius even, because I believe Vitautas is out of this race too, still in the pit lane. So Darius and I believe Sean Roberts were battling, and who's the number 13 there? Let's just spun it round. That is Sean Roberts. Keeps it out of the wall, thankfully, and keeps it going, so no flags there, hopefully. But yeah, the BE Racing guys of Eric Beddoes and Steve Bunting have profited massively off of this today. They are currently gaining 16 positions each. They have gained 16 positions through the course of this race, and they've got James Miller looking up the inside, and I believe Steve Bunting is just letting James through because he knows that James is so much quicker. So I believe they're just not going to battle. They're just going to focus on each other and focus on just trying to deliver a good result the best they can, because those BE guys definitely deserve it, being so far up the grid this late in the race. But yeah, as we're seeing now, so many drivers are out of the race because of all these repetitive incidents that we've had, and Steve Bunting's potentially going to look for a move on Frederick Larson, but Frederick Larson manages to make it nice and easy and avoids the Astro on exit as well. And that's going to mean Frederick Larson is now going to work with James Miller to potentially push up even further. And yeah, it's starting to look like everyone's filtering through nice and easy. Doesn't look like there's any incidents left to talk about for now. So we can actually get back to some green flag racing with Tico Kriegsman overtaking the John Rowland car. So that puts him now back into 13th position and looking to maybe make some moves in the future, as James Malare has got past Eric Beddoes into Ascari. So again, I think that's very much what these BE Racing guys are doing. They're letting through the faster guys because they know they're not maybe as quick as the other cars ahead.
Yeah, sometimes that's a smart thing to do, you know, not racing, not losing your time, because at the end of the day, the guy's just gonna get past anyway, and you lost time, and you made the guy lose time, and, you know, none of you get the best result possible, because at the end of the day, it's just gonna get past anyway.
Yeah, but new fastest lap of the race for Antonio Jimenez with a 1:44.25, so really good result from him, as Frederick Larsson's going to look up the inside of Eric Beddoes. Let's see if Eric makes it easy on him. It looked relatively easy. I think Frederick Larsson had that move done pretty comfortably by the time he got to the apex. So yeah, we see Frederick Larsson now starting to chase down James Malare and try to battle it out for P7. And yeah, what that's going to mean is that we're seeing the CUDA guys of Brendan Walker and Julie Redman up into 4th and 5th. So amazing results from those two drivers, as Stuart Gibbons is off there on the side of the circuit at the second chicane. So I wonder if there's going to be a yellow flag or potentially a safety car out for him, because he's going to have to wait now for basically everybody to get past. Thankfully, I think most people are through, so he can spin the car around and get back going again. Thankfully, he managed to do that without too much disruption. So yeah, thankfully the curse of the safety cars doesn't continue, as Frederick Larson...
and now we're just down to a 20-car grid, only 20 cars. Just even if it was it's already... Oh,
Frederick Larson,
what happened there?
I think Frederick Larson disconnected a little bit, or maybe had a mistake through the through Ascari and ended up having to cut across the circuit. I wonder whether or not he's got a slowdown, as it looks like he does, and that's going to allow Eric Beddoes to go up the inside and get gifted a free position, which, you know, he's not going to complain about that. And Steve Bunting as well, trying to maybe battle with Floodman as well for this 10th position. You know, you want points, you're going to double your place, you're going to double your points if you're getting P9 compared to P10. So let's see how well Floodman does at defending here from Steve Bunting, as Bunting's going to try and look the long way around the outside of the first part of the chicane, which will turn to the inside of the second part, lifting off a little bit earlier than some other people, and I believe there was some smoke ahead, so maybe someone missed their braking point for that chicane, and that's why there was a bit of a puff coming from in front. I believe it could have been Eric Beddoes potentially, as Frederick Larson is now already back past. So potentially we saw a mistake there from Frederick, or it could have been a back marker potentially as well. So yeah, we've seen a lot of drivers currently battling it out further down the field, and yeah, I mean, these back markers are all going to start playing a factor, obviously, with the likes of, you know, Olsen and Marshall, maybe even Franz as well, if they're still racing, but it looks like those guys are in the pits, so I'm pretty sure they have now officially retired from this race. So yeah, as we said, a 21-car grid now officially, with everyone out, and yeah, it went from a 26-car grid to a 21-car grid in basically 3 green flag laps.
Yeah, and we have Walker and Redmond here, just, you know, pushing each other around. Redmond is behind Walker, and oh no, it's the other way around, isn't it?
No, Walker is out in front.
Okay.
Walker is out in front of the 101.
Yeah, Redmond is just lifting at the end of the straights, so they don't want to switch positions. They're probably just, you know, pushing each other with the slipstream, and that's their strategy, and it's probably the correct thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if, you know, if you two aren't that dissimilar in pace, you know, you can have the person out in front who is sort of your faster lead driver, as it were, and the other one stands to gain a lot from it, because you can just keep each other going without any sort of issues going forward. So yeah, Brandon Walker and Julie Redman are trying to work together, maybe to catch up to the back of Jake Potts, Antonio Jimenez, and Victor Paris, but with the lap times that Victor, Antonio, and Jake are doing, it's going to be a very difficult ask, because they're going to need to improve their lap times by about a second each, as Julie Redmond now makes the swap on Brandon Walker. So maybe Brandon's not as comfortable, not as consistent, and so is actually going to push Julie instead. And maybe we'll see that bump drafting that you were talking about earlier as well.
I hope so. I hope so.
If they were listening, potentially that's what they're going to do. And they need to be careful though, because there is a Lumos car looming in the background, and that would be James Malaire, who is currently going into Ascari. So we will see potentially these two have to really step it up. Otherwise, James is going to get onto the back of them and then start trying to find some time with his teammate as well and push the DriveX guys all the way to the line. So let's get back on board with Joachim Flubman, as he has been just passed by Tico Kriegsman, I believe. So Kriegsman looking to make some positions back after what we can say is actually quite a late pit stop now in comparison to a lot of the other drivers. A lot of drivers pitting around sort of lap 9 on the second safety car, but Tico pitting on lap number, I believe that was lap number 13 on the third safety car. So potentially that's why we're seeing Tico now having to make some moves, make some positions up and start pushing to see if maybe he can catch up to the sort of top 5 as to where we would probably say he deserves to be.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't even know how he got there really, because he was up there. So you know, just as Potts got lucky, probably he got unlucky with all the yellows. So yeah, let's see what he can do up from this point. That I mean, P9 at this point only gets you 2 points. There's a lot of points there. Point. But it only gets you 2 points, and I'm sure that's way less than Kriegsman was hoping to get, especially after the amazing qualifying session he had. So
yeah, and you know, I think it's one thing to say that I think Tico did lose a lot of those positions because of pitting so late on the safety car. You know, we've seen it before and how it's worked with safety cars, and pitting early enough to where you don't get affected by any sort of incidents moving forward, because as you've seen in the F2, you've commented on it before in the F2 as well, at Interlagos for example, you pit early under safety car and all of a sudden you're gaining positions left, right and center because people are pitting under green flag where you've already pitted under the safety car, so you haven't lost that much time.
And looking at some cars here, I think Potts has slight damage. If you look at the nose, there's a bit of scratching going on. It doesn't seem to be losing that much, but is a bit slower than his best time, and the race's best time, which is actually a 144.054. Jake Potts' best time is a 144.097.
But here we go, 3 wide into turn number 1. Sorry to interrupt you there, but Eric Beddoes, I believe that's Joachim Flubman as well, and Dominic Herbert all battling into turn number 1. And it's looking like it was going to go 3 wide for a moment, but I believe Eric Beddoes just lifted off a little bit and wasn't necessarily too confident to try and make the move. And I believe Flubman also did the same, not wanting to go 3 wide into the chicane. So they all sort of gave each other a bit more room than they would have liked to, but we're going to see whether or not now Flubman can maybe make a move on Eric Beddoes into the second chicane here, as Beddoes is all over the back of Herbert. So I wonder if whether or not Beddoes is actually slightly faster than Herbert, or whether or not the reason why he's being so close into the corners is because he's maybe braking later and then just not able to get on power early enough. And what that's going to mean is maybe Flubman also can't really find a way to overtake, because obviously being very quick into the corners means you also need to be just as quick in the corners, and if you aren't overtaking or if you don't get the run out of it, you're going to find it very difficult to make any sort of move, as Flubman's all over the grass there going into Ascari. I thought he was going to have some major incident, as Beddoes is all over the curbing as well. Both drivers trying to use all of this track and maybe even a little bit more, as we see Jimenez now pit for the first time. So remember, Jimenez, this is his first pit stop, so where he comes out, this is where he is in the race. So he is currently 4th position 5th position, and he may actually exit in 7th, maybe even lower. So depending on where Tico Kriegsmann is in all of this, Tico may gain on we'll look to see whether or not we can spot him on Tico's point of view here while we watch this battle between Eric Beddoes. And there he is, the number 34 of Antonio Jimenez has been overtaken by Dominic Herbert as well. So Herbert is gained a position off of Antonio Jimenez, and I believe Jimenez is going to let Victor Barris know, we need to extend this gap even further. You need to drive faster and extend this gap even more, because otherwise you're going to be in the midfield.
So, remind me, who speeded up to Jimenez then?
So, everyone who has pitted now is everyone except Victor Barris.
Oh, that's
so Victor
interesting.
Barris is the only one left to make a pit stop in this race, meaning Jake Potts is leading because the gap just will not extend long enough. You've got 22 laps, or we've done 22 laps, or will have done at the end of this, so you've got 5 laps left. And you need to pit on one of those laps, and I don't think you're gaining 30 seconds in 5 laps. Not unless there's a huge mistake. So,
yeah, I mean,
potentially, this is a huge error for the DriveX guys, favoring track position on the restarts instead of favoring that all-important pit stop time.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say commentator's curse because I've been hyping these guys up from the start of qualifying. But I honestly did not expect that. But you know, the race seems shorter than it was. Obviously, it's shorter than what I'm used to in the F2. But because of all these safety cars, we got a lot of laps done when the race was essentially paused. So all of a sudden, it's the last lap, and you don't even know it. And Barris is not gonna make up 30 seconds to Potts, or 20 seconds even, or 5 seconds maybe. So Potts is looking good for a win there, and Redmond and Walker for a double podium for the position.
Yeah, and again, for those CUDA guys, that's going to be very important, as Eric Beddoes, unfortunately, both Beddoes racing cars spinning out there, and I'm not sure whether there was any contact between John Rowland as well and Steve Bunting, but it looks like all is good so far. I believe Eric Beddoes is now getting himself back on track. So, no more safety cars. Please, guys, no more. But it looks like we're clear for now. So, yeah, that just means that, unfortunately, for Antonio Jimenez, he's going to have to start battling through what he would probably consider to be back markers, pace-wise. You know, you see it here through the second Lesmos. Look at how much difference the speed is between him and Dominic Herbert, as I believe that's a back marker getting out the way there of these two, as Antonio Jimenez, I'm sure, is going to try and make a move into the entry of the Ascari chicane. And indeed, he looks like he's going up the inside. Is he going to be able to make the move stick? That was very close between those two, as Barris is now in the pits. So we're going to keep an eye on Barris and see where Barris comes out. Obviously, Jake Potts will take the lead of this race. Julie Redmond will finish second, and another podium for Julie Redmond as well, which is going to be very impressive for her. And again, this will be a podium where it is result-based rather than penalty-based. Because remember, we did have an incident involving a couple of drivers last time out where there was some sort of confusion of drivers. I think it was in Hungaroring, actually, where some of the drivers were crossing the line with incident points that actually pushed them further down the grid. So let's see where Jimenez exits, and I believe he is actually behind Victor Barris. So Victor Barris is now ahead of his teammate, with Herbert in tow, and I believe that will update at some point. So Barris is a bit further up the road. I think he extended the gap a little bit, obviously, with Jimenez having to battle for the positions. I believe Barris's lap times were slightly quicker for a little while. But what that means is now Tico Kriegsmann is ahead of Victor Barris in 6th and 7th. Antonio Jimenez is P8. And for the DriveX guys, that is something that you don't want to see. For the DriveX guys, you want to be 1 and 2 every single race.
But now I see something interesting. Moller has passed Brendan Walker for a double podium for Lumos instead of CUDA, so interesting development there. Maybe we'll see a battle for the last position. Oh, as Brendan Walker just goes off there.
Yeah, and we just
Maybe I should
caught
stop
that on the
talking.
screen. We just saw that on the screen, and the commentator's curse strikes again as Brandon Walker makes a big mistake there on the exit of the Ascari chicane, and thankfully he managed to keep it going in one line and didn't end up taking himself out. But those tires must be getting very worn, I imagine. You know, he pit on lap 7. Yes, Jake Potts up in front, pit on lap 6, but I think Brandon Walker's had to maybe push a bit more than Jake Potts, obviously with Jake Potts basically being in a race by himself near enough when the DriveX guys have gone. So Jake Potts, I'd imagine, is just going to be relaxing a bit now, and James Mallet is going to try his best to maybe catch up to the back of Julie Redman. And if James can do that, obviously pace-wise, it's looking as though James could possibly do it. I mean, the gap is almost 4 seconds, so he'd have to be 2 seconds a lap quicker.
Yeah,
but
they have the same. They have the same amount of same kind of lap times, at least recent laps. So I don't think that he's gonna close the gap unless Redmond has some kind of incident. You know, catching is one thing and passing is another. Even though at Monza is easy to pass, I'm sure if the gap was smaller, Redmond wouldn't make it easy for Miller. No. I think that's how it's gonna finish, and it's looking like still a great result for after all that happened for Potts and Miller there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Potts at one point was really far down the grid, obviously with the safety cars and having all those incidents himself, and then to end up coming away with a win near enough. Obviously, we don't want to say anything just yet because there's still a few more laps left of this race. You know, Jake Potts needs to, yeah, better not curse it anymore. But Jake Potts will be moving on to lap number 26 here. So only 2 more laps to go, and you know what? This race has flown by in comparison to a lot of other races. This race has had all sorts of action, as we will jump on board with Jacob Flubman as he's trying to make a move, I believe, on Darius as well. So Joachim trying to get the points here, and Darius is not going to make it easy, weaving left and right to try and break the toe as much as he possibly can. And is Joachim going to make a move into the Parabolica? He doesn't. He decides to actually sit behind, keep really close to the Parabolica, keep a nice tight line, get maybe a really good exit out of the Parabolica as Antonio Jimenez just does another fastest lap of the race, by the way. So Jimenez trying to pick up a few more points with a 143.926. And again, Darius trying to break the toe of Jacob behind. And if Flubman can make this move on the inside, then we'll see Flubman actually take home another points finish for that Team Banana team. So another points finish for them would be an absolutely amazing result.
Yeah, for some of these teams, you know, getting that last point, you know, it's just 1 point or 2 points. But for some of these teams, it might make a big difference at the end of the season with how close the midfield especially is. So you know, might not make a difference for Orion and whatever, because DriveX is double the points.
There was a huge mistake there from Darius, and that has allowed Flubman to get past. I believe Darius got too much up on the curb and as such gets spitted out to the outside of the circuit, and unfortunately that's going to be all she wrote. And I imagine with the pace of Flubman being pretty identical to what Herbert was able to do, then I'd imagine we won't see a pass back now. And one guy I do want to keep an eye on is Tico Kriegsmann, having I believe been overtaken by Victor Barris. So yeah, here we are, final lap of the race, or we'll be moving on to the final lap of the race, I should say, for these drivers that we're on board with, and maybe Kriegsmann can maybe overtake those DriveX guys for the 6th position here at the end of the race. So we'll keep on board with this one, because this is going to be one that we're going to watch very closely, because again, if Tico can make that move and he can make that pass, then you know, more points for him, as Antonio Jimenez does just go even quicker. I believe Jimenez is just trying to do quali laps now to try and catch up to the back of Kriegsmann and maybe help his teammate out and just give Kriegsmann something else to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, being sandwiched by these guys is never a good thing. But I don't know if Kriegsmann's gonna try a last breath attempt. But I don't think he's gonna be past Barris here. The gap just doesn't seem that close, and I mean, I don't even know where to start really to summarize this race, because Julie Redmond, P8 to P2. The Lumos guys, after all that's happened, Potts is now running Ascari, so it's gonna take a pretty big gap for a win. And I mean, I don't know what to say really, except for I wanted to be in their position.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an absolutely insane race, and we will jump on board here as I don't think any other moves are going to be made, but we will jump on board with Jake Potts as he does round the corner for the final time, and he will come home to win the Italian Grand Prix here in the IFL Formula 3 Championship and take home what is considered a very convincing win behind Julie Redmond, who finishes second for the Cooler Works team, and then James Malaire finishing in fourth, very closely followed by Brandon Walker. Sorry, James Malaire in third there and Brandon Walker in fourth, followed off by Frederick Larson in fifth. Victor Barris does take home sixth from Tico Kriegsmann, from Antonio Jimenez, and then Dominic Herbert as well, picking up that P9. So points finish for Dominic, which is a pretty good result for him. And then another points finish here for Darius in that number 23 car as well for Locals Autosport. Joachim Flubman finishes in P11 with John Rowland finishing up in P12. And then Arturo's coming around the Parabolica for the final time to finish in, some might say unlucky for some, P13. But hey, I mean, you know, if that's where you can get, you know, in a grid as competitive as this, P13 is a pretty good result, especially considering how big this grid is as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of these drivers can only hope for, you know, finishing a race close to the points. And while some drivers like Potts, for example, are fighting for a win, some of these guys are fighting for the last few points places because all that they want is the experience right now. Maybe they'll repeat F3 next season, and then they'll be fighting for upper spots once these guys leave for higher series. So these guys they're doing just right, and they should be happy with a P13 coming from P22 because they got the experience. They did a lot of overtakes, even if it was under the safety car. They got all this experience, and it's always a great learning session for them, really.
Yeah, absolutely. But that'll be it then from us here. And this is the unofficial results. Obviously, if any penalties are to be applied, then those will be. But what it does mean is Lumos eMotorsports takes home a 1-3, not the 1-2 that they probably would have liked, but a 1-3 nonetheless, with Jake Potts winning here in the Italian Grand Prix, followed off by Julie Redmond here for the Cuda Works team in second place, James Malaire in P3 with Brandon Walker in P4. Frederick Larson for the Orion Racing team takes home P5 with Victor Barris for the DriveX Esports team taking home a arguably disappointing P6 for the pace that they had this race. And then Tico Kriegsmann, it does take home P7 for the Turning Point Racing guys, and then Antonio Jimenez taking home P8 for the other DriveX car. Dominic Herbert taking home the P9 for Pure Racing Opposition, and to round out your top 10 is Darius there for the Locals Autosport number 23 car. And yeah, what an amazing race. It is it was incredibly good, and we'll see if we can get in a couple of interviews here with the likes of Jake Potts and James Malaire and Julie Redmond as well. So
Jake Potts is still doing donuts on the main straight, so I don't think we're gonna get him just yet.
we can try and drag him in. Let's see if he can give us an interview while he's giving donuts. So let's bring him in. Hey Jake, congratulations mate, P1 for yourself, an amazing win, obviously with some incidents that you had as well. I believe it was a slowdown through possibly the Lesmos that dropped you down a little bit further, and then those 3 safety cars as well, all causing chaos throughout the field. But yeah, how do you feel the race went for yourself?
Happy to get that pole. I knew I left a couple of tenths out there too, so I knew I had some pace because I did so many officials last week while the F3s were there. And then come race time, I don't know, I forgot how to drive or something. Yeah, I got that slowdown coming out of the first chicane, and I almost got the black flag. Almost didn't slow down enough. And then the cautions. I think I was the reason for the first one. Someone lost it in the first chicane, and I ran into him. And luckily, that allowed me to pit and take fuel. And then we had another caution right after that, and that allowed me to fuel save because I didn't have enough fuel for the end. So without those 2 things, I don't know that this would have been possible.
But regardless, I mean, you know, you take home the win in arguably a very competitive field, and it looked as though the DriveX guys were going to give you a real run for your money for a lot of the time, and you managed to hold your own quite nicely. I mean, at the end of the race, obviously, the DriveX guys not pitting under any of the safety cars put them a bit further down than they otherwise probably would have finished. But yeah, I mean, it looks as though, obviously, more points in your favor means in the championship standings, you and the Lumos team are going to start battling with the DriveX guys just that little bit closer, and obviously that's what it's all about, isn't it? Just trying to get as many points back as you can. If DriveX have a bad result and you can win, even better.
Absolutely. Shout out to James for getting that P3, and that's awesome for the points for Lumos.
Yeah.
We the first half of the season, those tracks we really struggled with, and looking at this calendar, we knew the second half we're going to do a lot better because we've raced these tracks a lot and we're a lot more familiar with them. So hopefully, yeah, we can bring that battle to the DriveX guys. I noticed that they didn't pit under any of that, so I knew they were going to have to pit at the end, so I wasn't trying to push too hard to catch them or anything. I was just making sure I kept it on the track, and the win was going to be possible.
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to Spa next, obviously not next week, but the week after that. And hopefully we see the Lumos guys taking home another, maybe even P1 and P2 potentially at Spa. And yeah, it's gonna be one of those circuits, I think, much like Monza, where we've got to watch out for the lap 1 incidents, but you get past lap 1 and hopefully it's all clean sailing from there.
It's one of my favorite tracks, so I can't wait to get there. I've already been working on the setup a little bit, so hopefully we can do this again there. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, congratulations, mate. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you back here again at Spa.
So yeah, big shout out to the Lumos guys for getting me ready and helping with all those officials last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you next week, mate. Cheers.
Sure.
And what we'll do is we'll try and get in Julie Redman as well, and see if Julie has her mic working this week. Obviously, last week at Hungaroring, sorry, not last week, but the week before that, Hungaroring, she didn't have it ready. So let's see whether or not she is ready to be brought in, and we'll get an interview with her for her P2. Again, amazing result. Hey Julie, finishing second place for yourself there, which is what you consider a pretty good result. I mean, P2 for the CUDA guys. It's,
I cannot believe how that race turned out. It was more just kind of a strategy thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
knew I was the top 5 coming in, but after that first full course yellow, I thought, you know, I was talking to Brandon, and I'm thinking, I think we can make it. By the time we go back, there's only going to be 20 laps left. And I think a full tank will do it. And so I was really debating. And I didn't do it because the front guys didn't do it.
Yeah.
Well, on the next yellow, I said, nope, I'm going in. And I did. And
Yeah.
I filled it. And I didn't know how much I was going to need. I just filled it. And I'm just going to let it play out and see how it worked out. And it worked out perfect because they did not pit. And they should have.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting to see the DriveX guys. Obviously, they've got the pace to be up there, P1 and P2, quite a lot, and to see them make what you can consider to be quite a big mistake. I mean, we've seen from the F2 series, we've seen from some of the F3 results as well, how safety cars play a massive impact. And if you pit early enough under the safety cars to be able to go all the way to the end, then you know you end up with a result that otherwise you may not have been able to get on pure pace. You know, you end up with P1s, P2s, and P3s because some of the top guys just were focusing more on the track position. And yeah, as you say, played out really well for the CUDA people. You know, you've got P2, P4 as well, both you and Brandon there, and taking home quite a good points haul for your team is always nice.
It's very nice. Yeah, we needed it. I'm not sure where that's going to put us, but it can't hurt, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else you want to say before we let you go?
Well, I'm just kind of speechless, really. This worked out so well. I don't know what to say about it other than fantastic. It's great.
Yeah,
I'll take
absolutely.
it.
And hopefully we'll see you back here again. Obviously, next race is Spa, so that will be not next week, but the week after. We do have another off week, so
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
just gotta make sure people are aware of that one. We've got an off week, and then we go back to the usual schedule of 2 races on, 1 week off. So yeah, Spa next week, and hopefully the car's all ready for that, and you're feeling confident as well, and maybe we'll see you back here again on the podium.
We'll see. I don't know about Spa. It can be a tough one. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll let you go, and yeah, congratulations again, Julie.
All right. Thank you very much.
And what we'll do is we'll get James Millett in here now for the P3. And Carlos, do you want to take this one? Yeah, in the final interview before we go.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go. Hey, James. What's up? So, by the way, it's my first interview, so, just you get that privilege. I mean, great race for you. I really wasn't expecting you to be up there. Probably you weren't as well. But yeah, just so you know, I probably got that result for Lomos because I was hyping the Drive XC Sports guys from the start of qualifying. So I kind of put a commentator's curse on them. But they made a mistake of not pitting. Obviously, you did great out there for kind of picking up from where Jake Potts left when he got the penalty. He had to slow down massively. So you did a great job by interfering there with the Drive XC Sports guys. Tell me how did it feel for you in the car?
It was good. I haven't driven in like the last 5 or 6 days, but last week the officials were here at Monza, and I did put in a whole lot of time. I got a new setup, things I was toying with, and I wasn't even sure I was going to race today. I wasn't going to have it all hooked up and plugged in correctly, and it was very, very. I got in there with 15 minutes left or 30 minutes left to practice, and then from there it was just trying to get some semblance of muscle memory back racing the track. So I think I had like the 14th or 15th fastest time in the practice, ended up qualifying around P5, and every lap from there I just got stronger. So it actually went okay. It would have been interesting to see sort of what happened without 3 safety cars. I was pretty worried there for a minute. I was comfortably in second, third, battling with the Dravex guys. I didn't have their pace, but had enough to stick close to them, and I thought I would just ease home to a podium doing that. But once the pit strategy goes out the window with all the safety cars, I had no idea what was going to happen. I think when I finally pitted under one of the safety cars, I think I came out and had something 5, 6, 7, 8 passes on the very first lap after. I made up, almost 10, 12 spots in the first 2. It was something just shot right back up to about P9. And from there, it was just trying to chase down, Julie and Brandon Walker and the CUDA guys who we're really competing with right now.
Yeah, I mean, even us in the commentary, we were very surprised when Jimenez pitted, and it was like P10 or whatever, and he had to really fight for the last few points positions. So, I mean, the luck of the draw just played out for Lumos and also for CUDA. I mean, you guys were alternating P1, P3, P2, P4 between both teams. So, I mean, I just want to say congratulations to you guys. Seems like it played out for you in this race, and hopefully it's gonna go like this. I know Jake Potts said you're more comfortable with the second half of the calendar, so hopefully we'll talk to you both on the same day again once in some other races.
Oh, yeah, we hope so too. We look forward to it. Thank you guys for all that you do. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you. See you, man.
Bye-bye.
Take care. But yeah, and that will just about wrap it us here. And I'll tell you what, that was again one hectic race, and 3 safety cars. And so we were talking about potentially a shake-up in the championship standings after that race.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear the current standings as it is right now? Because it's looking like it's looking like it's been shaken up by quite a considerable margin.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, as the standings are currently, obviously we aren't sure whether or not there's going to be any sort of points deductions or adjustments, but the unofficial standings for now is that Antonio Jimenez is leading the championship with 100 points, followed off by Jake Potts with 98 points in second place. So Jake Potts has now taken second place from Victor Barris, who is on 93 points in 3rd place. Frederick Larson is 4th with 70, and then Julie Redman is 5th with 64 points. So Julie Redman, having that 2nd place, has pushed her up really nicely to maybe take the fight to Frederick Larson and finish P4 in the championship. And then we've got Brandon Walker there in 6th with 53 points, Joe Watts with 50 points as well, although I believe Joe Watts didn't race on here, or at least didn't finish if he did, so potentially we may see a few other people overtake his spot near the end of the calendar. James Miller did gain a few more positions, now up to P8 in the championship with 49 points. Tico Kriegman with 41 points as well, and then Danny O'Keefe takes the top 10 spot with 30 points. So it's looking like it's pretty close up there near the top, obviously with the top 3 separated by only 7 points. So yeah, I mean, every point's going to matter from now on.
Especially the driver standings. Now that you said the updated points, I mean, I think I want to be here commentating every single race from now on to see how this plays out, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just going to be absolutely insane action. And if Jake Potts can compete like this with the DriveX guys every week, then we're not going to see this DriveX 1-2 every race, and instead it's going to be a absolute slog for those guys to really try and make some moves and really push the DriveX guys to the limit. And I think the DriveX guys also want that, right? Like, I'm pretty sure Victor Barris and Antonio Jimenez are not complaining at the fact that they've got Jake Potts to race with as well now. So
No, I don't think they're too happy after this race particularly, but I'm sure. I mean, they have each other to contend with for sure. I don't think they're gonna just, have one of them be first driver. So they were gonna be racing each other anyway towards the latter stages, I think, of the calendar. But I mean, it's obviously more interesting if you have someone else from another team battling you, and that's just what the Lumos guys and the Kuda guys seem to be doing here. So let's see what happens. I just want to tell you, man, like this race is probably one of the best that I've seen in IFL, really, out of all three categories. So I really hope we have this every week from now on.
Yeah,
because I'm
absolutely.
used to it now. I don't. This is the standard now.
Yeah, you get hooked, and this is the thing with commentary. Is I had the same thing. I started out with that Barcelona race in the F2. That was an insane race that made my voice die right on the final lap with the last minute safety car. And yeah, it's once you get that one race, you get hooked. And absolutely, we want to see all these people battling out every single race, week in, week out, because this is what we live for, right? As commentators, we want to give everyone else that's watching an absolutely amazing broadcast, and obviously for the drivers, they want to have close competitive racing, and I think the IFL is definitely delivering that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, don't know what to say really. I think I just need to have a rest, really. Obviously waking up early today to watch real F1, and then just this absolute titanic race here.
Yeah,
I don't think my body and brain can take anymore today.
All right, so we will end it here, but obviously we want to say a massive thank you to all of our sponsors as well for making this happen. TD Designs, Majors Garage. Also, again, thank you to the people who make the track cams for Gourmet. Check it out as well. The links are in the description, and they do an amazing job. I mean, I honestly think that these track cameras, it's just providing another level for everyone else who's watching. So it is an absolutely amazing thing, and really helps us as commentators and broadcasters provide something that hopefully looks and feels professional for everyone who's watching. And again,
for sure,
we want to thank absolutely the admin staff here as well, all of the stewards who make this happen. We all do it voluntarily, and we're all doing it because we want to put on something amazing for everyone else. And if you want to get involved, follow us on iFormulaLeague.com. The link's there on your screen. Join us on the Discord, and hopefully we'll see you racing, hopefully for either later on this season, or join us for Season 4 and see what you can do. See if you can compete with the likes of the DriveX and the Lumos guys. Yep. But yeah, that'll be it from myself here, and Carlos Catal as well, and we'll see you all next week.